First of all, I want to start this live show giving my prayers to the innocent who lost their lives today in the shooting in a Catholic church in Minneapolis. This was a neighborhood that my father grew up in when he came over as a young boy from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. An incredible evil act by an incredible evil person took the lives of the most innocent among us. The most innocent among us. Now, you all know, if you follow me at Flug Empire, when somebody passes away that I know or the world knows, I give the name and I give a prayer emoji and I say, rest in paradise. This evildoer, may you never rest in paradise. This live show is dedicated to the families, the loved ones in Minneapolis who lost the most innocent among us during an incredible, and I'm not going to call it a tragedy, an evil act against us. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football, and if you do as well, if you love everything in college football, please subscribe to our channel, smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this rebel outpost, if you want to support the home for the college football sickos with a donation. Hit that $sign where you make a comment, and I'll get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. I got to tell you, we were not going to do a live show today. This was going to be a secret day off for the fat guy from Minnesota. The little general knew that I was thinking about taking a day off today, but I can't. We can't. You Einsteins, you cannot take a day off today. I definitely cannot. I don't know if you all know this. I don't know how many of you have seen this. But Brett McMurphy, you saw the article he put out there, right? But he was with Andy and Ari. Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman. And they just talked about the next coming conference realignment. And Brett McMurphy dropped some bombs. He dropped some bombs, and I put a link in the description box for you all to watch later. We are going to go over what he talked about. This is basically what our live show is. We've done the picks in week 1. We've gone over all the games. We've done everything, guys. We are ready. We are ready for week 1. We are ready for tomorrow night's double watch party. Gophers, the Buffalo Bulls, Nebraska, Cincinnati. We're going to be doing watch parties on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. My voice is going to be absolutely gone by Monday night, the second half of the Horned Frogs and the Tar Heels. My voice is going to be absolutely gone. But it's not gone today. So we got to talk about it. We've been through all the games. There's no more left. We made our picks. There's no more left to be said. Boise State, South Florida. The Einsteins and myself took Boise State. We both took Nebraska. All right? We both took Baylor. We both took Georgia Tech. I took the Longhorns. You took the Buckeyes. We both took the Orange. We both took the Seminoles. We both took Clemson. I took Utah. You guys took UCLA. We both took the Rainbow Warriors. I took Virginia Tech. You Einsteins took the Gamecocks. Notre Dame, we both took Notre Dame, and we both took TCU. So we've done all of it. We've done everything. We are ready to go. Now I know people are going to say, great, talk football. We've been talking football. We've been talking so much football. But when Brett McMurphy, the great Brett McMurphy talks, we are going to cover it. We have been saying here at Peek Around the Corner, there's a few things we've been saying here. Number 1. Nothing is settled. Nothing is done. It ain't. I mean, the chatter behind the curtain, everybody that we talk to, whether it's the money purchase or the chatter behind the curtain, all of our sources, nothing is settled. Nothing is done. Nothing is imminent. There is no handshake deals. There is no wink. There is no nods. Nobody has approved nothing. Number 1. We have been saying that over and over and over and over and over again. But things are surely active. Things are surely fluid. Brett McMurphy also said, on the Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples interview that he just got done, that when he wrote that article, moments after he wrote that article and it was published today, and we're going to go through that article. Well, we're not going to go through much of it because basically I'm covering what the article said and a whole lot more. But when Brett McMurphy, this was his own words just a little bit ago, when he published that article, an SEC, a Southeastern Conference source told him that it's North Carolina and Virginia are the Southeastern Conference top choice. Now, this did not shock Brett McMurphy. It did not surprise him. Everybody he talks to, everybody talks to, it's North Carolina, Virginia. Brett McMurphy said again just an hour ago that Virginia, North Carolina, if you had to line up draft picks for the Big Ten, the Southeastern Conference, and that's exactly how he explained it, Brett McMurphy said North Carolina and Virginia would be the number 1 and number 2 picks for the Big Ten and the number 1 and number 2 picks for the Southeastern Conference. If you take Notre Dame out of the equation. Again, it's exactly what we've been saying at Peek Around the Corner since June 15th of 2024. It just is the truth. It's not a shot against anybody else. That is what the presidents want. Now, Andy Staples said, yeah, that's what I keep hearing. Everybody's telling me the same thing. And then Andy Staples says that I think the SEC is going to get both of them. And Brett McMurphy kind of stood there and smiled and said, well, if you want to put that up on a board or whatever, put it in a box, go ahead. But Brett McMurphy said that both conferences would be going after North Carolina and Virginia. Now, hold on. I'm drinking some tea that the little general made me. And we're going to try to keep my voice because we got a busy 5 days after today. So if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this channel and turn on those notifications. It's going to be a very busy next 5 days here at Peek Around the Corner. College football's Peek Around the Corner. Brett McMurphy went on to talk about how the fans, they all believe it's about football and wins and losses and viewership and all that. But Brett McMurphy says there's a whole lot more that is involved when it comes to conference expansion. Things that fans don't think about. But Brett McMurphy kept saying that from now until 2028, now he said in the article, and I might just skip over the article because I am covering the article, but I'm covering what Brett McMurphy said in a Wasserman Staples interview that just ended. Brett McMurphy said that in the article he said 2030, but in this interview he threw in the years 2028, 2029 to 2030. Things could be different. Like nothing has been determined. Nothing has settled. There is, and I'm paraphrasing, there's too many variables left. The media contracts, what schools are doing to improve themselves. Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman said it's about these schools trying to connect with each other, to create a faction, to offer themselves up to these conferences, who gives the conferences the best offers. All that is important. So Brett McMurphy said, whoever is at the top, besides North Carolina and Virginia, whoever is at the top of the SEC list and the Big Ten list might not be the same school 2 or 3 years from now. Things can change. In other words, things are very fluid, as we have been saying here at Peek Around the Corner. I'm not going to do a roll call. I do apologize. I thank you for all of us joining us today. I thank all of you for joining us today. But this is too important. I want to go through this information, and then I want to open up the phone lines. Again, super chats get the priority. Phone calls get the priority. We got to hit the phone calls as quick as we possibly can. We're not covering anything else. If you want to talk about the Syracuse game, give us a call and we'll talk about it. If you want to talk about Utah, UCLA, send me a super chat and we'll talk about it. But other than that, we're talking about the Brett McMurphy with Wasserman and Andy Staples. Now, Brett McMurphy, he talked about Jim Smith's answering the question, how many Big Ten schools in 2030 when it came to Inside Maryland Sports Radio program. We did a live show on that. Remember that? A couple days ago. Or was it yesterday? I don't remember. Maybe it was yesterday. No, it was 2 days ago. Jim Smith. Now, everybody relax. There's a lot to get to here. I know there's a lot to get. There is a lot to get to. Just be patient. When Jim Smith answered the number 20, Brett McMurphy talked about it on the On 3 with Wasserman and Staples and said, I'm surprised he did not say 20 to 24. You could tell that Brett McMurphy's like, this thing could go to 24 by 2030. Brett McMurphy says he was surprised that Jim Smith did not say 20 to 24. So keep that in mind. Brett McMurphy talked about how he says, this is Brett McMurphy's words. Again, I have put a link in the description box below the video. You can watch this yourself. Brett McMurphy said, I've gone back and forth on this. But he did say, and I know why he said it. Well, I think I know why he said it. Brett McMurphy did say that he's looking at 13. He believes that the Big Ten is looking at 13 AAU schools as the top candidates for the Big Ten. 8 of them in the ACC. He also said what is fascinating, he is including the 5 AAU schools from the Big 12. Again, what Brett McMurphy said on the Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman show is a whole lot bigger, larger than what he wrote in the article earlier today. Now, Brett McMurphy did say that, again, some of these 13 AAU schools are going to be higher on the list than others. He did mention Florida State as a school that believes that they can become AAU in a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years. What Brett McMurphy really wanted to stress, what he really wanted to focus on, the message that he wanted to send was the following. In my strongly held opinion, Brett McMurphy, because he was challenged by Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman on this. because they both were saying, well, there may be other schools out there that are higher value. You know, Andy Staples kept bringing up Fox. What does Fox want? What does Fox want? And Brett McMurphy smiled and he said, yeah, it's the presidents that are going to decide. It's the presidents that are going to decide. This is, you have got to fulfill the Big Ten president's wishes. And exactly the same thing with the Southeastern Conference. They challenged him on that, and Brett McMurphy said, okay, all right. And he brought up two examples. He brought up Kansas and Miami. He said, if Fox evaluated one of the two schools much higher than the other, then maybe the Big Ten presidents will take that in and maybe make a decision based upon that. But if it's anywhere close, well, the Big Ten presidents are going to take who they want. Yes, I did. I just brought up Kansas. Andy Staples brought up Kansas. Brett McMurphy named the 8 AAU schools from the ACC. Miami, Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina, Pittsburgh. What did I forget? Let me know what school I forgot. But the AAU schools from the ACC. He also brought up Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Stanford and California. Yeah, the ACE, yes, thank you. We were going to get to Utah in a moment. I'm going to get to Utah right now. So earlier, Brett McMurphy said that when he published that article, that he got a phone call from a Southeastern Conference source that said, hey, North Carolina and Virginia are our top picks. Well, Brett McMurphy knew that. They all know that. That's why I keep saying I think it's Virginia with North Carolina. This is why I keep saying they're at the hip. But whatever. But then later on, Brett McMurphy got a communication from a Big Ten source that mentioned Utah. That Salt Lake City is an untapped market, a growing market. Now, we have Peek Around the Corner. We have mentioned Utah specifically here because we've often mentioned that if the Big Ten goes to 24, Utah is definitely in the game. One of the reasons why Utah, now Brett McMurphy did not say this, but we know this to be true here at Peek Around the Corner. One of the things that Utah has going for them is their relationship with USC. It's much closer. It's a million times closer than the relationship that USC has with the Arizona schools and Colorado and Oregon. We've been told that specifically. We've been saying that for 2 years here at Peek Around the Corner. That's why I never mock the idea of Utah to the Big Ten if the Big Ten grows to 24. Brett McMurphy started this live show with Wasserman and Staples, basically saying, I don't know why Jim Smith didn't say 20 to 24. So obviously Brett McMurphy believes that there is interest to go past 20 from the Big Ten. Brett McMurphy says the fascinating part of the story are the Big 12 schools. That they are definitely in contention for the next Big Ten expansion. He also said, when asked upon if the Big Ten is going completely national, they got to get a Florida school, correct? And Brett McMurphy did bring up Miami. And he did bring up Florida State. And he thought Florida State, he said they believe they're going to be AAU in the next couple of years, which would meet the timeline of the Big Ten. So it looks like Brett McMurphy believes the expansion, there's a good shot it will go bigger than 20. Brett McMurphy did say in the article today that Notre Dame is they're not going to leave football independence until the world explodes. He said that in the live show as well. Brett McMurphy explained with Wasserman and Staples at Notre Dame that the SEC will do all they can to keep Notre Dame as a football independence. We've talked about that before. But as Staples and Wasserman both said, well, if this goes to a Super League, Notre Dame's going to have to go to a conference. And if the Big Ten and the SEC go to 24 teams, Notre Dame's going to have to join the conference. And Brett McMurphy did not push back on that. So while Brett McMurphy is saying that Notre Dame is solidly as a football independence and repeated that over and over again in his article, you can see, well, I'll leave that for your interpretation. The Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten are going to be expanding their conference. To what degree, to how many schools, I do not know. Nobody knows. Brett McMurphy kept repeating, nobody knows. Nobody knows. As I said on my April 9th prediction, not a report, I had a 1% chance of getting it right. I think it's at 0% chance. Nobody knows. Nothing is settled. Nothing is done. But there is a whole lot of talks, a whole lot of positioning going on. And schools are talking with each other, trying to get the best blend, trying to get the best combo to join the conference. There are a million reasons why these conferences want to grow. Brett McMurphy said, I don't know what's going to happen to the Big 12 and ACC. The larger the Big Ten and the SEC grows, he doesn't know. Here is one article that I wanted to put up. We talked about this. Peek Around the Corner has been on the leading edge of this. I want to show you guys something. ESPN and DAZ and DAZN, that streaming company in Europe, reached an agreement for U.S. college football and basketball rights in selected territories in Europe in the Middle East. DAZN, is that how you pronounce it? Announced it as we acquired live rights to a wide range of U.S. college football and basketball content through a multi-year sub-licensing agreement with ESPN. Up to 25 college football games per week during the 25 season. That includes the Southeastern Conference, the ACC, and the Big 12. The offering will include complete college football playoff, national championship. It would also bring the college game day pregame. This college football, basketball is going international. It started. It's going to continue. This is a simple sub-licensing agreement. Wait until the Southeastern Conference next media rights? And you know the Big Ten is going to answer on this. I just wanted to bring that up. We will cover that later on. These conferences are going to be pushing their brands or institutional brands internationally. They want international students. They want that money. That's why when people keep saying, well, why North Carolina, Virginia? Because there's a whole lot of international students that want to go to North Carolina, Virginia. If they can't go to North Carolina, Virginia, maybe they'll go to another Big Ten university if they're part of the Big Ten, or if they're part of the SEC, maybe they want to go to some Southeastern universities instead. It's a magnet for international students. Putting your athletic content internationally, global market, with institutions, their brands that are going to be pushed internationally. That is what the Southeastern Conference is going to try to do. That's what the Big 12 is going to try to do. That's what the ACC is going to try to do. That is what the Big 10 is going to try to do. That is going to be a story that's going to be going and going and going and going. And so that also impacts conference expansion in realignment decisions. Devil Frog, I think Greg is morphing into tiny Altamore with all this AAU nonsense. Devil Frog, I don't know what to say to you. Tony Altamore is basically a stick of gum on the bottom of my shoe. To compare me with Tony Altamore, I'm trying to be kind. Tony Altamore, who's gotten everything wrong in PATC, who I'm very proud to show our history when it comes to the Big 12 poaching, the Pac-12, and Oregon and Washington, and USC. There is no comparison between me and Mr. Altamore. I can guarantee you that. AAU is not a requirement. And Brett McMurphy did not say it was a requirement. But the Big Ten presidents control the votes. The Southeastern Conference presidents control the votes. Just telling you. They're not going to just they control the votes. Brett McMurphy is telling everybody, this is about making yourself attractive to the Southeastern Conference presidents and to the Big Ten presidents. The Southeastern Conference is going to get a huge media deal. The next time they renegotiate, they're going to get a massive media deal. The next time the Big Ten renegotiates, they're going to get a big, massive media deal. The Big Ten presidents know this. The Southeastern Conference presidents know this. Now, Brett McMurphy talked about 8 ACC schools. He talked about Duke. He talked about Georgia Tech. He talked about all of them. He talked about Pittsburgh, California, Stanford. Since Brett McMurphy has ripped open, he's ripped off the Band-Aid on this. D5 Terps, Maryland has 60,000 enrolled in its global campus, another 34,000 undergrad and 11 in grad. Let me tell you, let's talk about Maryland a little bit. Now, Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, if you go watch it, they talked about It's an athletic director of Maryland. What is their interest? What is their wish casting? They use the term wish casting. I'm going to go ahead and say something that we've been keeping on a lid here. Since Brett McMurphy went that far, let's push the envelope a little bit more. I have told this to a couple of people. One of them being Moen, and I think he's okay with me saying this. If not, I apologize to Moen. But before all this happened, before Brett McMurphy talking, let's keep this in context. Before I push the envelope, let's keep this in context. And then I'll get to you super chat. Thank you, Heartbreak25. I appreciate it. No, let's get to the super chat now. And then I wanna push the envelope a little bit more wide open here. Super chat. Heartbreak25. Greg, did your lovely wife keep the receipt for your gold hat and chain? Oh, God. I should have read this. I got a feeling it's getting returned like the Devin Hester punt. Unbelievable. Whoops, nope, I didn't mean that one. I did not mean that one. Unbelievable. No respect at all. Heartbreak25. Let me tell you something. The gold hat, the gold chain, Greg the Gold, it's all coming out on the Aftermath show this coming up Sunday or Monday, whenever it is, because we've got games throughout the whole weekend. Whenever we do the Aftermath show of week 1, Greg the Gold is going to be making his first appearance, official appearance. Nobody can stop me. Nobody, not even the evil Greg Dukula. Okay. Here is what was told to us at Peek Around the Corner. Now, Brett McMurphy made it perfectly clear. I've tried to do the best I can here, but it is fluid. I have brought up different points of views. I've talked about the Virginia Tech money perch. We talked about the Virginia official. We brought stuff. We've been talking about North Carolina, the rock fight that happened there, the Southeastern Conference trying to make their move in Virginia. We have brought up a lot of different angles to this because there is a lot of different angles. Duke money. Duke is promising a whole lot. Georgia Tech is sitting there. We've talked about a lot of things here at Peek Around the Corner because there's a lot of things going on. One of the things that is going on is there is very strong interest, and now this is not going to catch anybody by surprise, but there's very strong interest in the Big Ten by many in the Big Ten to get into the city of Atlanta. Maryland wants into the city of Atlanta. Ohio State, which is going to be doing a lot of driving on this next Big Ten expansion, wants into the city of Atlanta. Jim Smith happens to be an athletic director of Maryland who came from Atlanta, who did a whole lot of marketing and a whole lot of branding, a whole lot of work with Atlanta United, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Braves. Jim Smith was the CEO and president of the Ohio State Alumni Association. There's a whole bunch of Big Ten alumni clubs all over the city of Atlanta, including Ohio State, including Michigan, including Minnesota, a whole lot of different ones. There's a big force out there that wants in the city of Atlanta. So there's a lot of different factions, a lot of different interests. So Georgia Tech, they're about the third or fourth or fifth. There's a few different athletic programs from different schools that have a higher reach in the city of Atlanta than Georgia Tech. But again, those are possibly schools that the Big Ten would never be able to get. So maybe Georgia Tech is the answer to that. Atlanta is an international city. Atlanta is a city that you can easily get in and get out of. But where does Georgia Tech rank among the 8 AAU schools in the ACC? Brett McMurphy talked about Duke. He mentioned Duke. We've mentioned Duke. We know that Duke is being aggressive. They're taking their shot. Brett McMurphy mentioned Pittsburgh. We just talked about how there is a document there. There was a document at Penn State that talked about the subject line was no recent talks between the Big Ten and the University of Pittsburgh. But they've always been a candidate. There probably always will be a candidate for the Big Ten. But Brett McMurphy did not rank the AAU schools. Like he said, some are going to be not as, of the 13 AAU schools, he said some of them are not going to compare with others when it comes to possible Big Ten candidacy. So Brett McMurphy went on Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples' show, and boy, did he drop some bombs in there. He's like, I'm surprised that Jim Smith did not say 20 to 24 schools. Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Kansas are candidates for Big Ten expansion, along with the ACC's 8 AAU schools. Brett McMurphy, they were talking about Kansas. Andy Staples, look at the donation that Kansas received. Look at all the money that has been put into Kansas. And Brett McMurphy did not push back on it. He stood there with a smile on his face. Brett, you could tell, okay, now this is my speculation, but you can tell that Brett McMurphy has got everybody in his ear. I mean, that's how I feel. You know that things are fluid, that things are active, that there are schools working. If the Big 12 schools are working it here, if the Big 12 schools are trying to form their own little faction to try to get in the Big 10, if the Big 10 does go to 24, there's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on. Who is working with who? And now you probably see why Brett Yormark is having a difficult time getting any type of private equity, private capital deal done. And then let's talk about it. I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get yelled at by everybody in the chat room. I'm going to get yelled at by MBM. I'm probably going to get yelled at by everybody. But when Brett McMurphy is talking about Big Ten 20 or 24, and he wouldn't be surprised if it was 24, and Andy Staples is saying, I'm hearing the same things, and you could tell that expansion is on the minds of the SEC and the Big Ten. This is why the Southeastern Conference talked about a 32-team playoff. This is why the Big Ten's talked about a 24-28. You don't talk about large college football playoff formats in the future if you're not going to expand your if you're going to expand your conference. If you are going to go with these mega conferences, then you're going to go with the mega college football playoff format. So reporters, Reese Davis, it's not absurd. Nothing is absurd anymore. Except if you come to me with a 5+19 or a 5+23, well then I'm just going to try to find the highest ledge that I can jump off of. Okay? If it's a 5+23, I am going to try to find the highest ledge that I can jump off of. So let me recap. And then we are going to go to your phone calls. Again, this was an emergency live show. I did not plan to do a live show today, but Brett McMurphy was dropping bombs on the Andy Ari show on 3 show today. Again, I provided a link in the description box. You can watch the whole thing. North Carolina, we're going to recap what Brett McMurphy said. For those who are just joining us, Brett McMurphy, now I'm not even talking about the article. What he said on the On 3 show was much bigger than what he wrote in the article. The article was a teaser. Brett McMurphy said that North Carolina and Virginia are the number 1 picks for the Big Ten and the SEC. He doesn't believe that any door, and I've been saying, no door is closed on any possibility. But they are the top picks. But beyond that, nothing is settled. Nothing is done. But there's a lot of stuff going on. Brett McMurphy is still, once again, talked about the importance of the SEC and the Big Ten presidents. They're going to make the decision. It ain't going to be their media partners. Their media partners are going to pay for it to a certain point, and if that's a good enough deal, then the presidents will go for it. If they won't pay for it, then the presidents won't go for it. But the presidents are not going to put any school in their conference that they don't want in their conference. Brett McMurphy made that perfectly clear. You could tell that Brett McMurphy has received a lot of different information. But one that seems to be consistent is that the Big Ten presidents, the 13 AAU schools are going to be their top candidates. Brett McMurphy said Florida State believes they're going to become AAU in a couple of years, and that would meet the Big Ten timeline. So you can go put Florida State in there. But basically, Brett McMurphy is saying that the Big Ten, and look, the SEC is interested in the same type of universities. They are. Big, most of the time, big public universities with a lot of research expenditure money being produced. And of course, there's going to be other factors in play. Big markets. Brett McMurphy says the Big Ten still wants big markets. The Southeastern Conference want to expand their markets. And Brett McMurphy basically told everybody the battle is not done with North Carolina and Virginia. Although Andy Staples says he has heard that the Southeastern Conference is probably going to get them. I do as well. I could end up being wrong, but I think that Southeastern Conference has the inside track, and we've gone over this for the last year, why that is. But Brett McMurphy mentioned the AAU schools and the ACC. Brett McMurphy said that he got a call, Big Ten, about Utah specifically. Keep an eye on Utah. Brett McMurphy said untapped market. We've talked about it, peek around the corner, that Utah would be the choice for USC. We're not reporting that Utah is going to be a Big Ten member when the Big Ten goes to 24. But we've always believed they're a candidate. Brett McMurphy is telling everybody that they're probably going to be a candidate. Kansas is going to be a candidate. How many schools does the Big Ten take west of Mississippi River? I don't know. The big Brett McMurphy talked about Duke, Georgia Tech, every AAU school, Pittsburgh, California, Stanford, North Carolina, Virginia. So there it is. We are going to open up the phone lines. And Miami. We are going to open up the phone lines. This is your show. This is your show. Go ahead, give us a call. If you're new to the program, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to College Football's Peek Around the Corner. Subscribe and turn on those notifications. We can come on live at any time. We do come on live at any time. We cover the breaking news. Sometimes we deliver you the breaking news. The phone lines are open, but I want to keep one thing straight. Nothing is settled. Nothing is done. Brett McMurphy could not have said it. He could not have made it more clear. Nothing is done, guys and gals. Nothing. They're all working on it. They're all working on it. Schools are talking to look. Schools are talking with schools. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger, can you hold on for just one moment?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Let me give you an example. Texas and Oklahoma called the Southeastern Conference together. Okay? Oregon and Washington worked on the entry into the Big Ten together, as we were reporting it live. If you go back to episode 22, go back to episode 22 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner. When we went through each and every post that I put on Twitter at that time, when we broke the news about USC and the Big Ten, we mentioned many, many, many times, because we were told this, that USC and the Big Ten were working alone. The USC called the Big Ten alone, not with anybody else. When the breaking news came on June 30th of 2022 that it was UCLA and USC, it was also reported that UCLA and USC were working on separate discussions with the Big Ten. They were working alone. I can almost guarantee you that whatever happens next in the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten, it ain't going to be like USC and UCLA. It's going to be more like Oregon and Washington and Oklahoma and Texas. You're going to have schools working together. Hint, hint, wink, wink, North Carolina, Virginia. You're going to have schools trying to work together. Miami, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Utah, Colorado. Whatever that combo is, schools are going to try to lock up, try to figure out what the Big Ten and SEC wants. They're going to lock up and they're going to work together. I can almost guarantee you that that is going to be one of the storylines heading in the next 24 months. Ryan Willie, thank you for your phone call. But can you hold on one more second, Ryan Willie?
Yes.
I apologize, but we are very busy today. I got to get to these very generous super chats. The other Gygax. So you are saying West Virginia has a chance at the SEC. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Other Gygax, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate it, my friend. Who knows, Daniel? If they go to 24 and the Big Ten goes to 24, all of the scenarios that we've been talking about, you can just expand them. Thank you for the $2 holler, Daniel. I do not have an answer for that. Wild Jute. Greg, if you had to stack and rank the AAU Big 12 schools for the Big 10 entry, what would the rankings be? Woo! Wild Jute. Wild Jute, you know that I have, you and I have had discussions on your brilliant show that you do, the College Football Mafia show. You and I have had discussions in private. You know that I have been told about Utah being a potential Big Ten candidate. If the Big Ten goes to 24. And you know that you and I have taken the arrows on that. But it is true. It's true. They're going to be a candidate. If I had to rank the 5 AAU Big 12 schools for Big Ten entry, if I had to rank them, at this point, I would put Kansas 1 and Utah 2. I would put the Arizona 3 and 4 and Colorado 5 at this point. I would put Kansas 1 and Utah 2. Thank you so much for the $20 holler, Wild Dude. I appreciate it. Ryan Willie, thank you so very much for your patience and for your friendship. The floor is yours.
Thank you for taking my call, Greg.
You bet.
I personally like to see, now this is hypothetical, I would personally like to see Kansas be one of the schools that enter the Big Ten. Possibly Colorado, Georgia Tech, let's see, Duke, and well, I know that it probably won't happen would be North Carolina, but maybe Utah from the Big 12 to get to 24. But I think the reason why people in the Big 12, the fans of the Big 12 teams that possibly won't end up in either the SEC or Big 10 are so upset with what you're telling them is they don't want to end up like the Pac-12 situation with Washington State and Oregon State. That's my personal opinion.
All right.
That's why MBM and because MBM has actually come after me in a couple of chats in on the College Football Mafia shows. So, yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah. All right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are you ready for your first game, Badger?
Nervous.
Okay. All right, buddy. Appreciate it, my man.
All right.
Beautiful.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Market text. Arizona State has to be the number 1 in the Big 12. The amount of the Big 10 alums. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. I would not rank them number 1 quite yet. Could change.
Call from
Edward the Auburn Tiger.
Edward the Auburn Tiger. Can you hold on for a moment, please?
I sure can,
I
sir.
appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your patience. We're very busy today. Christopher Hooter, super chat. My goodness. There are not 8 schools on the board for the Southeastern Conference to get to 24 that offer super value. Why would the SEC do that? Why would ESPN do that? Maybe there's not. Maybe the SEC just goes to 20. Maybe they go to 18 with Virginia, North Carolina if they can get them and stop. Maybe they don't need their skids greased with the Florida State and Clemson. I think they do. I think they go straight to 20. I think if they get North Carolina, Virginia, that's going to satisfy the presidents, the international stuff that's going on, those 2 big growing states, the student population, and then they'll be willing to grab a Clemson and Florida State, those 2 huge valuable football brands. Maybe that's all. I think that's what's going to happen. But maybe they don't go to 24. Or maybe there's something there that we just don't see yet because we don't have a big enough telescope. We're all looking at 3-eye atlas right now. Well, the Southeastern Conference, they're working on this international market stuff, and I don't know. Maybe at Kansas, we've been told that at Kansas was something that the Southeastern Conference would look at if they go to 20 or more. Big time basketball brand market. It's known. The Kansas brand is known in basketball. International players, I don't know. Maybe they do not go to 24. Maybe they don't. Christopher Hooter, thank you so much for your generosity. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Edward the Auburn Tiger. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, another great show, man. You do a great job, and I absolutely love the PATC family.
Appreciate it, my man.
I just wanted to talk about 2 things, cloak and dagger and trend lines, Greg.
Yeah.
We know what was put out in public is not an indication a lot of time what goes on behind the scenes. For example, remember Ohio State canceled the game with Washington. Washington gets all upset and mad and everything. What happens? They're in the Big Ten. So we know a lot of cloak and dagger behind the scenes.
Yep.
Back in, remember when NBC, Fox, CBS, and ESPN was all vying to be a part of the Big Ten contract. Mm-hmm. And remember, it went a long time, and all of a sudden, ESPN pulls out at the last minute. And people are like, man, what is going on there? Let's fast forward. You have the SEC about to culminate a deal with the Big Ten concerning the college football playoffs and how everything is supposed to be set up. SEC pulls out at the last minute, which tells me, even though we know schools will make the decisions, you still have the networks pulling the strings. Mm-hmm. And what I absolutely believe, is that ESPN does not want the automatic qualifier playoff set up because they don't want to share the goods with Fox, NBC, and CBS. Nor do they want to give up any inventory to their competitors. And I absolutely believe, Greg, my opinion, that there won't be an automatic qualifier college football playoff setup. And they're going to hold as many of the inventory in this next big conference realignment situation because they don't want to lose those pieces. And I believe if SEC goes to 24 like Big Ten, they're going to lock down the South and they're going to lock down the Southwest, which means Kansas, maybe a Colorado, but they probably double up in a lot of these states, whether it's Virginia, North Carolina, might even look at a Georgia Tech to lock down the South. How do you feel about all that?
I mean, sure, but I think the Southeast. Let me put it to you this way. I think the Southeastern Conference, in my mind, they're not thinking about playing they're thinking about, they're not thinking so much about playing defense. They just want to expand the conference because they want more media footprint. They want more students. It's the battle of students here for the next 20 years because we're going into a student apocalypse. And they want to push their brand internationally. They want to be able to get all this done. So whatever decisions they make, this whole locking down the South or this or that, I happen to think, now I could be wrong. I definitely could be wrong. I probably am wrong. But and people that I've talked with have always thought, and we're accurate on this, the Southeastern Conference wants Virginia, North Carolina for very important reasons that have nothing to do with viewership numbers or football wins or brands or what they have their reasons why they want those two schools. We've talked about it over and over and over and over again. They want a diversified student population. They want those two states. They want them. I've always been on the impression that then they would also go get a Florida State and a Clemson because they're just too valuable out there. But I think the Southeastern Conference is battling the Big Ten for North Carolina and Virginia. And then beyond that, I think the Southeastern Conference is going to do what they think is best for them. So it might end up being a Virginia, North Carolina, and then they go more westward. And maybe they don't think about Florida State and Clemson. Maybe the Big Ten does something there. So I don't know about locking down the South because no matter what the Southeastern Conference does, they can't totally make it 100% sure that the Big Ten doesn't go south. I mean, for example, Georgia Tech. The SEC is not going to take Georgia Tech, right? But the Big Ten might. And the Southeastern Conference is going to say, okay, well, because, or even I would even put Miami in that. Like, I don't think the Southeastern Conference has any interest in Miami. But,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, look at this, Greg. The situation with the ACC is totally predicated by ESPN. I mean, the SEC couldn't do anything about it. We know Florida State, Clemson was trying to get out. And it was ESPN that moved the ball. It was the ESPN that almost certainly made ACC come in, made them settle with Florida State and Clemson. Therefore, they're the ones that laid the groundwork, which tells you that no matter what SEC wants to do, we know they have a lot of say, so we do. But the ESPN is pulling the strings, even this 9-game conference situation. Had the money been right 2 years ago, the SEC probably would have did it 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. ESPN made it right because they brought the money. That's bottom line. If you really look at it, it's bottom line. And so, yes, we know what the SEC wants similarly and Big Ten and all, but ESPN is going to be the player. And I believe that this herk and jerk reaction that the SEC's been having is because of this silent partner called ESPN. Is telling them, listen, you're not going to sign off on a deal with Big Ten that's going to allow Fox to come into the college football playoff inventory. They're not going to do that. And they're not going to have SEC, they're not going to do what they did with the ACC and have plans with the SEC and not have a long game where they stay in power control. Now, I'm not saying SEC will be able to get all of those teams, but you better believe the teams that matters to ESPN, they're going to get those teams. Because I don't see ESPN making all these moves, spending all this money just to let the inventory go to their competitor. I don't see that.
All righty.
I don't see that. Thank you,
got
sir.
it, buddy. I think a lot of people agree with you, sir. Beautiful call, Edward. Edward.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Beautiful, sir. Appreciate it. Call again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. God bless you.
Call from
Rick?
Rick, can you hold on for a moment, please?
You bet.
I thank you very much. We got breaking news. But first of all, I just want to say about Edward the Auburn Tiger. A lot of people agree with Edward. Like, the reason why ESPN worked out this settlement, and, because they were part of the settlement. They were part of this. Would they really do this if they were going to let Florida State and Clemson go? Like, had a chance to leave them. So a lot of people agree with the Edward Auburn Tiger. Now, there are other people on the other side of the coin are saying, well, geez, the Southeastern Conference, they've already got really, like the South Carolina-Clemson game isn't going away. So whatever happens with Clemson, those home South Carolina versus Clemson game, ESPN's going to get that. And if Clemson stays in a reimagined ACC, ESPN is going to enjoy that as well. That also includes Florida State. So there are people on both sides of the issue. I just happen to think, and I could be wrong, but I think the Southeastern Conference does the big scoop, and it's Clemson and Florida State. But let's keep it clear. The news today, one of the many bombs that Brett McMurphy dropped, once again, it's North Carolina and Virginia, what the Southeastern Conference wants. And we've been telling you that since June 15th of 2024. Before we get to Rick, there's breaking news. As Daniel Montcastle, Expansion Crush, said in the chat, Fox and YouTube TV have agreed to a short-term extension while they work through a new agreement. Good news for college football fans. Rick, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you for taking the call. And yes, that is great news because no football fan, college football fan, should, having gone through 8 months of torment waiting for the season to start, should miss their game because YouTube and Fox can't figure things out. I'm in the Auburn and the Tiger camp. I really think he's got it nailed down good as far as the ESPN position. The problem they run into, the SEC, is there are so many bedrooms in the house, and you can't fit all those schools into the number of bedrooms they got. And some are going to be left behind. And the Big Ten is going to enter SEC land. I'm still baffled by Petitti's reluctance to strike first, knowing what the situation is. I get the high value North Carolina, Virginia, but there's so much more of an advantage to striking first and getting a better position without UNC and Virginia.
Well, maybe they figure. Now, I'm just throwing this out there. I had somebody speculate this to me before. But maybe the Big Ten's thinking is if they don't get North Carolina, Virginia, they at least want to drive up the cost for the SEC. Like, don't let this be too easy for the Southeastern Conference, because if it's real easy, then the Southeastern Conference is going to do even more, and, so drive up the cost. And
that take is also coming from, as much as ESPN is pushing the SEC and the ACC, so too is Fox pushing the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is Fox also getting into the game, saying, well, we're at war with ESPN, just like the Big Ten is at war with the SEC. And these are the battles we're going to fight, and these are the battles we're going to avoid. But there's always a great advantage to he who strikes first when the battle is imminent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? And, Brett McMurphy alluded to it. Andy Staples definitely alluded it. A lot of people have been alluding to this.
Maryland athletic director.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is I'm not even like Brett McMurphy. It's like things can change so quickly in a couple of years. And it just doesn't sound like the Big Ten is ready yet. I mean, if North Carolina called them tomorrow and said, let's go, the Big Ten would say, let's go. I don't think the Big Ten, there is a lot, I don't think they're completely aligned. Beyond the North Carolina and Virginia, I don't think they're aligned. And I don't think the Southeastern Conference is aligned beyond North Carolina and Virginia. I think that's the only certainty for both conferences. There's a lot of interest in a lot of other institutions, but I don't think everybody is aligned. So that's another thing. It's like,
well, and it could be maybe they're not aligned, but maybe Fox and ESPN are.
Well, maybe they are, but like Brett McMurphy said very strongly today, this is the president's call. They're going to make the call. And Andy Staples said, what if one program delivers way more value with valuation than another? Then Brett McMurphy said, well, then maybe that would alter it. But basically, this is the president's call. In other words, Brett McMurphy was basically saying, when it comes to these candidates, there are going to be some that are lower, some that are higher in valuations, but nothing is earth-shattering, right? It's going to be what the presidents want. That's what he was telling us today. If you go watch that with Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples. So
yeah, but we've been, the thing is, we've been, what's the best word? Gaming this out for months.
Yep.
And so have they.
Yes. Yep. And unfortunately, there's new presidents, new athletic directors everywhere. So I don't even know. I think that both conferences, I think there is some in the Big Ten that still believe in going after North Carolina, Virginia. So that is also what's holding it up. So, like I said, nothing is done yet. And when Andy Staples said that he believes that North Carolina, Virginia is going to end up in the SEC, Brett McMurphy kind of just said, well, go ahead and put that in a box. Or he said something to the effect of, okay, we've noted that, but Brett McMurphy wasn't going to go there. He said, I don't know where they're going to end up, but they are the top two picks for the Big Ten and the SEC. So Brett McMurphy's basically saying that North Carolina and Virginia are they're the highest priority for the Big Ten. They're the highest priority for the SEC. So I think it's difficult for the Big Ten to get off the North Carolina-Virginia train until there's a result to it.
You remember how the presidents of the Pac-12 screwed up their conference?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do I. Do I.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the call. And prayers go out to the entire Minneapolis community for your loss today.
Yeah, that was just terrible. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep. You're welcome.
Appreciate the call. Appreciate the prayers. Daniel Gorby, Brett McMurphy seems to think that AAU status is required for the Big Ten, different from what Greg discussed yesterday. What Brett McMurphy said on Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples, he says, I keep going back and forth on this. because Brett McMurphy has stated in the past, I have shown the post that AAU status is not a requirement. I still believe it's not a requirement. But I think what Brett McMurphy was trying to illustrate here is that the Big Ten is still the Big Ten. The Southeastern Conference is kind of aligned with the Big Ten. They want these big, wealthy research universities for their own academic and research reasons. And then athletically, if they can, they want to get new to expand their footprint, to expand their brand, to expand their ability to attract new and diverse students for the other institutions of the conference. So that is what I think is, the Big Ten presidents are, I said, they're not like us. They're just not. They're looking at billions and billions of dollars worth of budgets, billions of dollars of research every year. They know the research that the federal government wants. They know the research that they need help on. They want to have partnerships with. It's why Florida State, if you talk about Florida State, Daniel Gorby, it's why Florida State and the state of Florida is getting more focus on genome research, because that is what the interest is. That's where the money's going to. That is what the Big Ten universities want. So, those are the type of schools that look, I don't think an AAU vote is necessary. The AAU is not going to have the veto pen. But if you are considered an AAU institution by Big Ten universities, then you are going to be on the candidates list. Remember, the Big Ten only has, 17 votes out of 60-something? You can get every vote of the Big Ten presidents for AAU, but not become AAU. But if you are considered a viable, healthy research university, now you are a candidate for AAU, but you're also a candidate for the Big Ten. Who is McKay? Expansion Crush. What's going on? I don't know who McKay is. Let me know, Expansion Crush. Somebody is paying for Virginia. Somebody is going to pay for Virginia. Who is telling McMurphy that AAU is required? That wasn't the exact words. Brett McMurphy believes at this point in time, the 8 AAU schools of the ACC and the 5 Big 12 schools that are AAU are going to be the top candidates for Big Ten expansion. And he said the most fascinating part is the Big 12 schools. Brett McMurphy brought up the fact that Florida State believes they're going to be AAU in a couple of years. So that would fit the timeline for the Big Ten. So he did not come out and say it was a requirement. He did, but you got to watch Brett McMurphy is telling everybody, he said it. Even after all the AAU talk, Brett McMurphy wanted Ari Wasserman and Annie Staples to know this is the Big Ten president's call. They're the one with the votes. The valuations of these universities, some are higher, some are lower. Some are better than this, some are better than that when it comes to athletics values. But at the end of the day, if the Big Ten doesn't want you in the conference, if the Big Ten presidents do not see you as a Big Ten university, they're not going to give the opportunity for Fox or a future media partner to pay for you, to get you in the doors. The Big Ten tells Brett what they want the narrative to be. I would tell you this. Brett McMurphy has a million sources, and his accuracy is incredible. And I've been trying to say basically everything Brett is saying. It's North Carolina, Virginia, and nothing is settled, nothing is done. Things are fluid. Schools are going to be working together, trying to get in the door. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen yet. There is no secret hint, hint, wink, wink. There is no secret deals. And the Big Ten presidents and the Southeastern Conference presidents are going for what they want. And it just so happens to be North Carolina, Virginia. The SEC makes a lot of money for ESPN. Let's not get it twisted. The Southeastern Conference content is the most valuable content in all college football, college sports. And then it's the Big Ten. And it's not that far apart. I know a lot of you people talk about the ratings. The Big Ten they don't need to hit the same rating numbers as the SEC. They don't even really have to be close. The Big Ten is making moolah for their media partners. They've always have. That's why they make so much in the next media negotiations. I mean, goodness, the Big Ten network itself, just the network has made Fox so much bleeping money that Fox is willing to hand over a check to every Big Ten university to go from 51% equity to 61%. The Big Ten Conference is sitting with over $500 million cash on hand. So again, I get it. Oh boy, the Big Ten's in trouble. They don't have the ratings. The Big Ten ain't in trouble. The Big Ten's not in trouble. The Big Ten is going to look to push their brand internationally. The Southeastern Conference doing the same thing. It is the Big Ten presidents and the Southeastern Conference presidents that are going to make the call. And if ESPN comes back to the Southeastern Conference and says, well, you know what, you can forget about our pro rata. We're only going to pay this team 3/4. And if the Southeastern Conference goes back to that team and that university and says, well, you can get 3/4 payouts, that university is still going to say yes, and the presidents are still going to vote for them, and ESPN is still going to bring them on. If the Southeastern Conference presidents want Virginia and Virginia says yes, ESPN's going to pay for them. Peggy Schaefer, if that is the case, the Big Ten just is not serious about sports. Well, that is the opinion of many, and it kind of, every 10 years, that is, they're just not serious about sports. I think the Big Ten is very serious about sports. The Big Ten sponsors way more sports programs than the Southeastern Conference. The Big Ten, however, those universities make way more money on research than they do athletics. So it's very difficult for the Big Ten to say athletics is our number one priority. when we're making millions over here, but they're making billions over here. So the Big Ten really is never going to be what if you're a fan of sports, they're never going to really fit that. But, look at the Big Ten facilities, look at the money. I think they're serious. Clemson is a very interesting thing here. We believe that we believe that Big Ten and Clemson have talked. So Clemson is very interesting with the news coming out. Maybe Clemson, if you listen to Brett McMurphy, maybe Clemson's only road is to the Big Ten. We're not quite there yet, though. I mean, the only road is to the Southeastern Conference. If you take Brett McMurphy's words today, we're not quite there yet here at Peek Around the Corner. We have reasons why we're not quite there yet. The Southeastern Conference has more national viewership than anyone. Absolutely true. But the viewership of the Big Ten is more valuable. The markets are more valuable. That is why the Big Ten makes as much as the Southeastern Conference. It's not just the number of viewership, it's who is viewing your programs.
Call from
Christopher Hooter.
Christopher Hooter, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I appreciate it.
Greg, great show. Great show.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you putting, I can't follow, Twitter or whatever we call it now, and Brett McMurphy coming out. I appreciate you doing your program and letting us all know, right? And staying on top of this stuff.
You got it, buddy.
Well, kind of following up on my per cap comment, right? It would be, and you keep saying international, right? But aren't we in an environment now where politically we might be squeezing this international content, right? If there's a lot of Asian students in U.S. universities, that may be waning. That may not be on the right. That they might no more, right? That might be a national security issue. So I don't know if I'm buying the international content.
Yeah, I think look, when these international students, they're paying full freight. And these university presidents, they're not quite in line. They want more international students. They want to push their brand, their university out internationally. There are universities that have campus internationally, and they want their sports content to be viewed internationally. So I would disagree. I think these universities are going to go, I think these athletic departments, the Southeastern Conference, the most conservative conference in the country, when you talk politically, they're going international. There's news today. They just signed a streaming agreement to have their football games and basketball games played in certain markets in Europe and the Middle East. Now, everyone's going international. So I think a lot of that stuff is overblown. But go ahead, sir.
Okay, when you say Europe, yeah, those are allies, right? And Middle East, if you cherry pick, those could be allies too. But you did not say Asia.
Well, that wasn't. Are you talking
maybe
China
they'll play
or
basketball
what?
games.
There's a lot
there or something, right? Yeah.
Huh?
Maybe they'll play basketball games over there or something.
There's a lot. I don't know. I think right now, I think they're trying to push their athletic content into Europe and the Middle East, and I think private equity is going to play a part in all this. But no, these conferences are not looking inward; they're looking outward. They're trying to get more. The motivations for the Southeastern Conference to get into North Carolina, Virginia are the same motivations that they want people to watch them in Europe. They want more viewership. They want more students. That's just the way it is. They want more sponsorships. They want different sponsorships. They want they want more diversity in their sponsorships. Go ahead, sir.
Well, even now it's hard to watch games in Canada. Forget Europe, just in Canada.
Sure it is. Yeah.
You've got these I think they're called, what's the NAFTA word? Cultural exceptions.
Yep.
So you don't have ESPN in Canada, you have TSN.
Yep.
Which is owned partly by Disney.
Yep.
But you don't really have real ESPN in Canada. You have a hybrid.
Yeah, you don't have it in Mexico either. Yep.
Or Mexico either, or Europe for that matter.
Yep.
So maybe they're maybe they're trying to open it up over there. Maybe that is sort of the rest of the story. I guess.
Yep.
I guess I can buy that. But the SEC does not want to leave its contiguous footprint. So we're talking about North Carolina, okay, Virginia, okay, maybe Kansas, okay, because that's all
sure.
Too. Right. But now we're talking Ireland, right?
Ooh.
So now we're talking Ireland or Europe, right?
Well,
that's not contiguous, right?
No,
So
and I'm not talking about having a European university part of the Southeastern Conference.
I get that.
But universities do have campus sites in Europe. I mean, it's you can go and study under a university umbrella, and you don't have to necessarily come to America. But they are pushing their brand, their content into Europe. We've been talking about this for a couple months. There's a story that came out today. I'm going to pop it up on the screen again. ESPN and DAZN reached an agreement for U.S. college football and basketball rights in selected territories in Europe and the Middle East. We gave everybody a peek around the corner here at Peek Around the Corner that this is going to be happening. And it's happening. The Big Ten is going to do the same thing. They're going to do it differently. They're going to use a different streaming giant. But this is all going to be happening more and more and more. So it's just like how the Premier League in Europe has gained a market in the United States, and they're making a whole lot of money. Your institution in the Big Ten or in the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, they're being told there is money elsewhere if you open up the markets, and that is what they're trying to do.
But didn't we? Okay, on the game you just play-by-play, the Kansas State-Iowa State game, which was in Ireland.
Yep.
It's my understanding you could not watch that game on TV in Ireland.
I don't know if you could or not.
You had to be there.
I don't know.
You had to be there or stream it in some obscure way, right? Use a VPN or whatever.
Maybe.
Right.
Yep.
But to directly turn on the telly or whatever they call it, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't. You could not do that. So I guess if ESPN is trying to puncture that market, okay, maybe I can kind of buy that. But that's what I heard. You could not watch the game in Ireland unless you were in the States.
That very well could be true. Yep.
Yeah. So I can buy that. But okay, so that's the international angle. 8. I'm not buying either league is going to 24. I don't know. I just find that that's a lot of teams. 16 or 18 teams can't agree on the time of day. How do you get 24 to agree?
It would be very hard to manage. Very difficult to manage. It's very difficult to manage
about herding
now.
Cats.
Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens internationally. I get your point. Now that I'm kind of thinking out loud with you, maybe they can open up those linear TV markets or streaming markets over there. Okay, I'm buying that. I'll give you that. But 24, man. 24 times 2. I don't know. Well,
we'll see.
We'll see. Yep. Okay. Anyway.
All right, man.
Thanks for taking the call. I appreciate what you're doing, and enjoy the program. Okay.
Appreciate it, Mr. Hooter. Call again, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1366. 333. As Brett McMurphy said on the Andy Ari show, it finished about an hour before we came on live. He said, I'm surprised that Jim Smith didn't say 20 to 24. The athletic director of Maryland, when asked on Inside Maryland Sports, what is the number of teams going to be in the Big Ten in 2030? Brett McMurphy says, I'm surprised he didn't say 20 to 24 because Brett McMurphy is hearing a lot of things, just like we are at Peek Around the Corner. Nothing is settled. Nothing is done. It is fluid. It is active. Brett McMurphy did say that North Carolina and Virginia would be the top 2 picks for the SEC and the Big Ten. We said that on June 15th of 2024. That has not changed. But beyond that, Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Duke, and all these other schools, it's fluid. And things could change. And Brett McMurphy said, whoever is that next in line with Big Ten interest, that all could change in a couple years. The rankings within the Big Ten and the SEC could change just in a couple of years. Brett McMurphy also said that he was told by a Big Ten source, keep an eye on Utah. Utah, Brett McMurphy said, and I quote, is an untapped market for the Big Ten. We have said here at Peek Around the Corner for probably for 2 years now, I'm guessing, that the one thing that Utah's really got an advantage, something they've got in their hip pocket, is their relationship with USC. USC, if they could choose, and they would have influence, they most definitely would pick Utah over the Arizona schools or Colorado. We were told that a couple of years ago. I think other people have been told that as well. That doesn't mean that Utah is going to be pushed over the goal line if the Big Ten goes to 24. But Brett McMurphy did say the 5 AAU schools would have to be part of the Big Ten candidate list. Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, and Kansas. Andy Staples talked about Kansas, the value of Kansas. Look what they're doing. Look at the money they're spending. They're spending like they're going to get to a P2. And Brett McMurphy said yes. And who knows? Brett McMurphy said, who knows in the next couple of years what program is going to spend like they want to get to the P2. We don't know. We're going to have to watch it. A lot of things could change, Brett McMurphy said. But today he decided to say the 13 AAU schools would be the top candidates for Big Ten expansion. And Brett McMurphy also said that if Florida State, Florida State believes they're going to be AAU in 2 or 3 years, that would fit the Big Ten timeline. I've also said here at Peek Around the Corner that if the SEC goes to 20 schools, that Kansas would be in the mix. We have been told that about over a year ago. And again, that was talked about on that show. Just not Big Ten or SEC. So we'll see. I mean, Kansas is most definitely in the mix. Brett McMurphy brought up, it's Duke, Pittsburgh. He brought all the AAU schools up as possible candidates for Big Ten expansion. So it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Vox Quindaro, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Kansas has spent a mountain of cold, hard cash. And it's been Vox Quindaro's cold, hard cash they've been spending. Kansas Jayhawks got into Vox's piggy bank and they're spending away. Way before Mr. Booth dropped by with his $300 million. Kansas cost every Big Ten school $5 million each on its next contract. Peggy Schaefer. Thank you for coming on in, Peggy Schaefer. Rich Austin, I want the chat board to drop down and give me 20 for your disrespect of Utah.
Call from
Tristan Fives.
Tristan 5, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate you taking my call. Hey, listen, I know you're saying that nothing's finished yet, and I agree with you, obviously, because it's not really done unless it's official, right? So regardless of what talks have happened, until people sign on the dotted line, nothing's done.
Yep. But
I want to remind everyone, we had previously talked about the fact that if you look at the modern era of realignment, which in my opinion starts with the move that Penn State made into the Big Ten, which was that in '89, Greg, when that happened?
Penn State?
Yeah,
I think it was. Let me know if I'm wrong, people in the chat room. I thought it was 91.
Okay, it was right before the SEC took Arkansas and South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. So the decision tree, if you want to call it that, the process you go through in evaluating schools going into the P2 is, number one, revenues. That means you're going to go into either the SEC or the Big Ten if you have the opportunity. And then for schools that have a choice between the two, they take the closer geography. Every single move into the Big Ten or the SEC can be decided using that algorithm. And so, to me, that argues that both North Carolina and Virginia, if those are the two, I mean, if your hunch is correct or if what you're hearing is correct, they should be taking the SEC. Now, Virginia, of course, there's Maryland right there, and you could make an argument when you're talking about they're right there. They have a border with Pennsylvania, and Maryland's right there. So you could make an argument that Virginia might fit just as easily geographically into the Big Ten. But North Carolina, Greg, I mean, they border so many SEC states. It's hard to see them choosing the Big Ten just on the basis of geography. If that is, in fact, the deciding factor, which seems to be historically, that's what people choose, right? Texas and Oklahoma did it. Texas A&M did it. What do you think?
What I think about what exactly?
That you're bucking the odds if you're trying to argue that North Carolina and Greg, I've been an advocate for North Carolina going to the Big Ten. I would like it. I think it would be great to have NC State and the SEC and North Carolina in the Big Ten. I've wanted that. Yeah. But I understand now, looking back at the history of it, that geography is a huge factor in all of this.
And it is for North Carolina, especially. I mean, they've made it known that that's important. I agree with you. I've said this. I think North Carolina leans SEC, and it's not just for one reason. It's multiple reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think the Big Ten can give up the ghost because they've been going after North Carolina for decades. So I don't think it's something that the Big Ten's just going to say, well, they're yours, SEC. Go take them. I think, if anything, they'll drive up the cost or drive up the anxiety or whatever, right?
Sure.
But I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, and I'll remind everyone. I said this before. I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but if they get North Carolina and Virginia, Greg, if the SEC does, and then somehow, for whatever reason, the Big Ten never makes it into either one of those two states, down the road, Maryland will become an expansion target for the SEC. I think if Virginia and North Carolina go to the SEC and the Big Ten never gets a school in either one of those two states, man, it's going to be tough for Maryland to look at that and say, all right, well, we'll stay where we are. I think they'll seriously think about making a move into the SEC just to reunite with their old rivals. So I don't want that to happen. I want the Big Ten to really fight in the Mid-Atlantic, Greg. They just can't let that go.
They can't just give it up, and that's why Brett McMurphy says I'm not going to say he knows they both want him. So I don't think the Big Ten's going to give up on it. If they lose it, they lose it, but I don't think they're willing to just give up on it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Greg, is that even if they miss out on those two, they need to seriously take a hard look at Virginia Tech and NC State. And then Duke, of course, if they're available. But I mean, they can't turn their nose up. Those are fine universities, and I know they're not as academically highly ranked as North Carolina and Virginia. But goodness gracious, you can't just sit there and let those schools, So anyway, that's all I had to say, Greg. Keep up the good work, and I'll talk to you later.
I appreciate it, sir. Call again.
All right. Thanks.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, just an incredible show today. Brett McMurphy. Again, we did provide a link in the description box below the video. Brett McMurphy was on Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples show on 3. And Brett McMurphy, man, he dropped some bombs in there. We've covered it. So if you just join us, go back from the start of the show and listen to it. Really, just, again, we've talked about it here at Peek Around the Corner, that reporters were going to start at least speculating on all this, because there's so much talk going on. There is. Nothing is imminent. Nothing is settled. But there's a lot of stuff going on. And the reporters are going to start talking about it. And again, this is why the SEC and the Big Ten wants a larger college football playoff format. So what people believe was absurd just a week ago, a year from now, they're not going to think of those numbers as being absurd. That is my strong opinion. We got a super chat from Jacob Cat. UVA, UNC, Duke and Florida State to the Southeastern Conference, Notre Dame and Clemson to the Big Ten. Thank you for the $2 holla, Jacob Cat. Now, Brett McMurphy did say the 13 AAU schools are the Big Ten candidates. And then he mentioned Florida State. He was saying that Florida State believes they're going to be a Big Ten AAU school in a couple of years. No mention of Clemson as a Big Ten candidate. We believe they are. We have reasons to believe they are. Now, are they on the bottom of the list, the top of the list? We don't know. We do know they're not at the top of the list because that's where North Carolina, Virginia stands. So I don't know about Notre Dame and Clemson. And then Brett McMurphy also said that Notre Dame is not going anywhere. They're going to stay independent until the world blows up, but basically until the ACC blows up. Virginia, North Carolina, Duke, and Florida State to the Southeastern Conference. That could be it. That could be the big scoop. That could be the big scoop. Jacob Cat, thank you for the $2 holla. I do appreciate it. SECM 12. I can't believe Duke and North Carolina would separate. I don't know. Virginia is... There's so many things that North Carolina and Virginia does as two universities. It's why we keep saying they're tied to the hip. We do get a lot of... Brett McMurphy said it today. He said the fans, the college football fans, they don't understand the Virginia piece, but the presidents want Virginia for a lot of reasons that none of us would care about. I've talked about them, but not a whole lot of people care about. Greg, can you explain why Virginia is so much a better candidate than Virginia Tech? Because it's an audience of 18 presidents. It's an audience of 16 presidents. Because Virginia and North Carolina have that relationship. Because if North Carolina goes to the Southeastern Conference, if LSU votes for North Carolina, and North Carolina accepts, Virginia coming along with North Carolina gives North Carolina the political cover internally to accept the Southeastern Conference invitation. Unlike Maryland, when they had a lot of problems going to the Big Ten alone, they went with Rutgers, but they didn't come with any ACC cover. Virginia gives North Carolina the political cover. Plus Virginia's attractiveness to international stuff that is going on in Southeastern Conference. Virginia Tech doesn't. Virginia Tech is a wonderful school, big time research university, but Virginia has that connection with North Carolina and an international touch that a lot of schools can't touch. So that is why. That is why. Clemson's target is 2035 for AAU. Greg has the answers in advance like a smoking hot co-ed with smooth, lanky legs using Chat GPT to pass their biochem exams. Thank you for the $5 holler. I don't know if that was a compliment or an insult, but I'm going to accept the $5 holla. Thank you, Cobra Cat. Thank you for your generosity and for your how do I say it? Your create you being creative in your comments. Thank you, Cobra Cat. Appreciate it. I'm not saying Virginia Tech doesn't have plenty of international students. I'm not saying that at all. Virginia Tech is a wonderful research university. And according to the Virginia Tech money perch, they're hoping to catch a plane to Big Ten country. And by the way, if we're talking AAU, if we're talking AAU candidate, if we're talking Florida State being a candidate in 2 or 3 years from now, you've got to bring up Virginia Tech. They've been a candidate for AAU. They've been knocking on the door longer than Florida State. So keep that in mind. So watch the next time AAU says we've included these universities, and we don't know when that's going to happen. It doesn't happen every year. Don't just watch Florida State, but watch Virginia Tech. Watch North Carolina State. It was 89. Thank you, Expansion Crush. I was wrong. It was 89. I thought it was 90 or 91. Football didn't join until 91. Okay. Maybe that's why. Alrighty, guys. I do appreciate you all joining us. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. Before you leave, please smash the like button. I appreciate everybody coming on in. Thank you, Heartbreak 25, Daniel Gygax, Wild Jute, Christopher Hooter, Jacobra Cat. Thank you for your donations to help us keep the lights on here at Peek Around the Corner. Thank you so very much. We had a great, wonderful phone calls. We had one heck of a live show on what was supposed to be my 1 day off before we go to 5 straight days of college footballs and watch parties here at Peek Around the Corner. So I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so very much. I do appreciate you joining us for this incredible live show. Brett McMurphy, we provided the link in the description box below the video. Brett McMurphy dropped bombs on the Wasserman Staples On 3 show. He talked about Kansas. He talked about Utah. He talked about 13 AAU schools being the top candidates for Big Ten expansion. Brett McMurphy says 20? What about 20 to 24 schools in the Big Ten by 2030? It's a possibility. We do not know. Nothing is done. Nothing is settled except that North Carolina and Virginia are the top 2 targets for the Big Ten and the SEC. Something here at Peek Around the Corner we reported to you all on June 15th of 2024. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on those notifications. And again, smash that like button if you've liked our content today. Tomorrow night, double watch party. The Buffalo Bulls versus my beloved Golden Gophers of Minnesota and Nebraska and Cincinnati. Come join us. Watch party tomorrow night. The scoreboard will be up. I'm going to be all fired up. It's going to be a night of celebration, or it's going to be a night of complete devastation. Last year, it was devastation when the Gophers missed the short field goal with seconds to go on the clock and they lost. The year before that, it was complete celebration when the Gophers defeated the Cornhuskers in the final seconds. Please let it be not that close tomorrow night. The Gophers, Bulls, Cornhuskers, Bearcats, join us. I appreciate you all. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, 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 you all take care of each other. And as always, God, family, Golden Gophers.